Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel Trading Secrets. This channel is for entertainment purposes only. For those of you who do not know, my name is Ali. I have over 20 years experience teaching accounting, economics, business and law. Through this channel I'll be providing some stock analysis and a quick update on the $1 Million Challenge. So if anybody's not aware of this is a journey of an investment of $1,000 to a return of $1 million over a period of 3 years using a strategy called compound return investing. So the objective is to try to get 201 trades, each with an average return of 3.5%. It's not 201 consecutive trades, we do take into account losses. So for further details about how to join us for less than $9 a month, information is available in the description below. In today's video, I'm going to be focusing on the pros and cons of moving your shares with AST, so stay tuned for that. Before we get started, let's have a quick look at what's happening in the market. So first headline here from Bloomberg: stocks crushed year of bond in the biggest sentiment shift since 1999. So more than half of JP Morgan clients now see no recession. I certainly think we are at the peak of interest rate increases and also at the peak of inflation. Inflation is actually coming down significantly, and in other developments in the markets, this is also going to be a huge week for earnings. So we'll have a look at on Monday. We're going to be keeping an eye on stocks such as SoFi. Tuesday we also have Uber and AMD, which will be quite significant. Wednesday we have Oxy, and I think the biggest one of the year is Thursday, where we're going to have Apple. As well as Apple, we have Amazon and Airbnb. And I think in terms of Apple, if we just quickly focus on Apple and have a look at the history of Apple's second quarter revenue since 2009, we can see here significant increases in almost every single year, especially from 2018 onwards. And last year we can see the revenue was 83 billion, so I do expect an earnings beat, and I'm certainly optimistic that we're going to get revenue increase to be in excess of $85 billion. So before we look at the pros and cons of moving your shares with AST, I want to have a look at the breaking news that was shared late yesterday, and this was with regard to the 15 members of Congress. So shout out here to the glass guy who stated, new faces of MMTLP, let's welcome them and support them and never forget them. So these are the new faces of the Congress members who have signed the letter. We're going to have a quick look at the letter shortly, but what I have posted earlier today, there is always hope, and this certainly looks like the beginning of significant change. Gary Gensler, you're now in the spotlight. Give Congress your answers and give the MMTLP justice. We are certainly watching. So again, special thanks again to Anna from Anna Trades, who's tweeted here with the Republican Eli Crane, who I think has been instrumental certainly in getting people from the Finance Committee on board. So again, special thanks to Eli Crane, but let's have a quick look at the letter. So this is addressed to the Dishonorable Gary Gensler, dated July the 28th. So the key points in the letter is the Congress members are requesting the SEC review events surrounding Metamaterials Series A preferred share MMTLP, requesting that the SEC conduct a substantive briefing on its findings. So they're not looking for one or two word answers, Gary, they're looking for a substantive briefing. So you need to get your act together, you need to get your story straight, and you need to be telling the truth. So obviously the key thing they're focusing on is the SEC received and subsequently approved a Form S1. So basically we are seeing here that the SEC saw there were no issues whatsoever of concern. So why the discrepancy with FINRA? So that is something that has to be addressed. FINRA issued a U3 halt, yes, preventing shareholders from making further trades. Investors have contacted members of Congress and the committee regarding the spin-off transaction and the subsequent halt of trading. So yes, your voices have been heard. Special thanks again to each and every single one of the MMTLP community who have contacted members of Congress. It has made a difference, so special thanks to you. Also special thanks to Hollywood Henry, who I think has been instrumental in this as well, and he is also one of the unsung heroes of the MMTLP community. The letter also goes on to say, we request the SEC to review the activities surrounding these market events. A review should include a timeline of trading of MMTLP on the OTC markets, actions taken by the SEC and self-regulatory organizations such as FINRA, issuers and transfer agent and other relevant parties during the time MMTLP was traded. So Gary, message for you here. You need to tell Congress the history of MMTLP, who created it, what was the fraudulent issue behind it, and Gary, you need to tell obviously members of Congress, what was that research? What was that term fraud, investigation of fraud that you talked about? Your people talked about in the correspondence with FINRA and the SEC. You've not nobody has publicly mentioned what the fraud was about. So I'm sure Congress would like to know. We asked that the SE staff be prepared to identify any regulatory or legislative gaps that may be addressed so that the SEC, FINRA and regulatory entities may better protect investors and strengthen market integrity. So the SEC are all about integrity and market integrity, all about protecting investors. So are FINRA. So why have the MMTLP investors not been protected, and why are we not getting access to market integrity? So I'm certainly glad that the Congress are asking this important question. And to finish off, they've also said, as you know, transparency is paramount to the SEC goals of protecting investors. So Gary, you need to be transparent. You need to be clear and you need to be honest. This is what Congress are asking you. Ensuring market integrity, we believe that it's appropriate that the SEC review these market events, determine what, if any, wrongdoing may have occurred. So Gary, if you don't sort out this mess, get out and let somebody else take over. So what I'd now like to do is focus on the pros and cons of moving your shares with the AST. So before I get started, quick reminder that this is not financial advice. Another thing I'd like to say before going through this is I'm not sharing any opinions. I'm not going to advocate whether or not you should move or not move. That is entirely a personal decision. But what I am going to do is share with you in my personal opinion of the pros and cons. And obviously you will make your own decision. So let's start with the pros. You will receive, first of all, common stock and interest in the Bronco project. So this is an additional benefit announced by Greg McCabe, and it's certainly something there in terms of an advantage of moving, especially when you get the new common stock. It's also stated in the S1 that this will add value to the corporate governance and allow the company to have better communication with you as the shareholder. So at the moment, I think communication has been virtually non-existent, and what the company are saying is once you move to AST, they will know who you are, they will know who all the shareholders are. So communication, they are saying, is going to be better, it's going to be more clear, and obviously it will add value to corporate governance. The Bronco project will also expose NextBridge hydrocarbons to a large upside drilling project in the first step towards diversifying. So if we have a look at here, if anybody wants to look at the highlighted sections from the S1 that I've shared here, and again Greg McCabe has talked about this here in the S1, so as a significant advantage. And I think I also believe that moving your shares to AST should also allow the company to prove a share imbalance, which all of us virtually know that is the case, but it's just a case of having the proof. So this should give us the proof. So there will also be removal of uncertainty, and this will allow the company to sell the assets more easily to a buyer. So right now, let's say behind the scenes, if there is a potential buyer, in my personal opinion, I don't think any buyer would take on a company that's currently in a mess like it is right now, not knowing who the shareholders are, not knowing who they need to pay. Because if a company buys, we as the shareholders, we are the ones that need to receive those dollars. So at the moment, the company do not know who the shareholders are. A buyer doesn't know who the shareholders are. So in my personal opinion, selling right now is going to be tricky. Afterwards, I think it will be much, much more easy. So it will also give more evidence for retail investors to take legal action against the broker dealers. So I think the broker dealers have got off lightly with this, and if you look back to my previous video, you'll certainly see that they are obviously extorting money from retail investors, charging money unnecessarily for moving your shares with AST, and sometimes these fees are an unbelievable amount. I think the highest one we saw was one in excess of $1,000, and some of them were not even looking to move them. So Again, not great from the broker dealers, who I believe should be acting a lot more honourably and fairly, but they are not. So theoretically, shares in Newco should still be eligible for trading if trading resumes with shorts to close only positions. So I think this is one of the biggest concerns of shareholders are moving. So let's say, in my personal opinion, I don't think it's going to trade again. However, with developments in Congress, it's definitely not impossible. It can happen. So theoretically, yes, if you know, we do get a bigger movement, and then obviously more pressure on Congress, more pressure from Congress onto FINRA, onto the SEC, yes, trading can resume. And if it does resume, so in my personal opinion, everybody who has shares in AST will be given time to move back. And therefore you shouldn't be penalised, because if there is a decision to have trading again, then that will include time for everybody to move it back. So that should certainly happen. So let's now move on to the cons. Again, possible high broker fees and a bureaucratic process. We saw that in the previous video, where we saw even the Bird Lady shared some kind of documentation that was provided by the broker to fill in. So they're not making it into a straightforward process whatsoever. They could, as we've just seen, there could be potentially a delay in moving back your shares if trading resumes. So you know, we don't know how long that would be. It could be a number of weeks. But it will add to a delay. Also, more bureaucracy. Brokers could also charge a fee for moving shares back out of AST if required. So again, I don't put anything back past the brokers. They are greedy and they do want your money, and they don't like doing things for free. So that could be certainly a con. And finally, developments in Congress could mean it may be better to wait, especially if we have 60 days from the S1 being effective. So you are not under any obligation or pressure to do this, make this decision now. You can certainly wait. And finally, what I would like to do is share with you from my personal point of view, in terms of my shares. I'm currently with a broker, Trading 212, that are not allowing AST in to be used for individual shareholders to put in our name. AST Trading 212 have been informed with regard to the new developments. They are looking into it. They are obviously not yet made the decision. We will continue to put pressure on them, and I will certainly share any developments and updates from Trading 212 and any other brokers as soon as we hear. Finally, I'd like to share with you another important update, and this is with regard to Rosa's case. So shout out here to Mark, who's posted earlier today. Rosa's attempt to file the second amended complaint was met with a denial and judgment dismissing her case. I thought she was creative in an approach, but she's also in the Circuit Court of Appeals, which is the 11th Circuit, and they take a staunch position that FINRA has immunity. So they're not bothered about all the legal arguments. Right now, our appeal and Allen's cases are moving forward, and I think you also have Richard's as well. And Shortwave Sam has stated here, we would all certainly like to applaud her efforts and her never failing tenacity, and I do think primarily because she was arguing this before a Circuit Court of Appeals, the outcome should not surprise anyone. So in my personal opinion, I think Rosa's arguments were constructive, they were detailed, they were honest, but unfortunately the judge has taken the position in favour of FINRA, which was as expected. So Mark has gone on to say she did a really good job considering the odds and the law were against her. What is it allowed the MMTLP story to be documented as part of a public record, and obviously as a reference tool. So we have the judgment there, and I would like to say that the judge involved, Mr. Robert L. Hinkle, thank you very much for nothing. Finally, if you'd like to get a copy of our weekly watch list, which will be made prior to trading on the Monday exclusively to the Discord members, this will also give you access to the challenge. And finally, thank you very much for watching. Please stay tuned.